to get started with what we need to do, because we've got some things to do this morning of extreme importance, crucial, destiny setting, eternity changing, importance. I say that with constrained spirit. It is true. And I'm so fired up, I was almost ready to start before the song ended. You saw that, didn't you? Are we set here, Nate? What do you do when you're ready to get there? It is. What is your measure of a good Christian? What is it that suggests to you that these folks are on it? They are on it as believers. These people measure up to being a good Christian. This guy is strong. He looks foolish to me. See what that is that he's holding over his face with one arm? This guy is strong as a believer. She's committed. What is it? That is your measure. As a guy, what's your measure of a good, solid believer? As a girl, what is it? It says, yep, this fulfills it. This is a good measure. Now, we all have some indicator. Whether we can verbally express it or not, there is something that suggests to us as we see it or look for it intentionally or notice it incidentally that they are on the measure. That they are on the measure. They're on it. What is it for you? Now maybe you're thinking that I don't really have a measure. I don't. But you still form opinions. Maybe you don't ID what those measures are, but you still form opinions. This one is there. Well, let me say it this way. Maybe for yourself. When do you have the impression that I'm doing it? This is it. I'm on it. And then, when is it that you see, oh man, I am so off. I have so blown it. What's the measure? What's the determiner? What's the indicator? What's the suggester to it? And I'm bringing it up for this purpose, that we have it, and I want you to see it, and then I'm bringing it up for this purpose to see if you can idea what are your measures. What are they? Now I have some. And a little bit later, I will tell you what mine are, but I want you to know mine aren't either here or there. What I'm after is yours. Now, I'm going to have you really think about this. I really think about these measures. What are they? And I'm going to say this giving you time to think about what yours are by expressing to you what some others have had over the years that I've encountered with people. And then we'll hear from you, maybe. Is this a rhetorical question? No, I'd like your participation. Here's one. Actually, there's two that go together. It's hair and clothes that are the measure. They're the indicators. They suggest to us clearly where someone is at. Hair over the ears and long, and clothes, well, pants on girls, never shorts. And if they do, why do they insist on being so unspiritual? Now, I want you to know my wife has encountered that over the years. And I want you to know that when we were in Chicago in a ministry, there was one lady who came to realize and confessed that she used to get so angry at men and women who did that. She was so angry, and suddenly she realized her anger was not an indicator of very good spirituality on this. What's their measure? Are those measures still around? Yes, they are. They're still around. Another measure was that you are at every service. And this used to be in the days of Sunday morning Sunday school and Sunday morning service and Sunday evening. And if you are there, that is a good indicator, now it's not totally, but good indicator that they were good Christians, that they were there. Okay. Here's a third. Holy living. Don't smoke, don't chew, you know how that goes, right? Some of you don't run with those who do. And then some people take it to a higher level, saying this to me. I remember standing there looking at the person when they told me, I haven't sinned in 27 years. Wow. I can't get through an hour. I don't even know if I get close to an hour. Maybe when I'm sleeping, maybe not. If sin, as the Bible describes, is every lack of conformity to the character and will of God, every lack of conformity to the revealed character and the expressed will of God in His Word, then loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, be you perfect like God is perfect in 27 years, always loving your neighbor like yourself? But it was the standard, it was the measure that she had. Whew. What's yours? Measure of a good Christian. Keeping the 10 Commandments? The golden rule? Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Good things. How about this one? Loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and loving your neighbor as yourself. That's how Jesus summarized the whole thing. Is that it? What is it? Any of you willing? No one's willing. Why aren't you willing? Because you don't have one? Because you don't measure other people, whether they're good Christians or not? Because you don't think, oh, now this guy's really doing it. She's on it. Oh, they're strong. You don't do it? I don't buy it. Listen to me. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. We do, don't we? What's our measure? This morning, we're going to talk about the measure. And I want you to know the measure differs for different groups, different people, but I'm going to talk about the measure because what we talk about is at the heart of this matter. It is the totality of it, of what makes a good Christian. It's at the heart. And I want you to know this. There is clarity and there is certainty on this matter. It is settled. And for the benefit of your life and the life of people around you that you interact with, I pray that you get clarity and certainty and settledness on this matter. Acts 15. I want you to go there. Acts chapter 15. Acts chapter 15, and let me state for us the story is about the Jerusalem Council on what makes it. Acts chapter 15. I hope that many of you have been working on Acts chapter 15 because it is the unfolding story. It is where God takes us in his story of the Bible. It's God's story through the Bible. Acts chapter 15, and let me phrase for you what this question is. Now, what shall we add to this? To what? To this. Unless you cannot be saved. I want you to look. Acts chapter 15, verse 1. But some men came down from Judea and were teaching the brothers, quote, unless you cannot be saved. Something here makes you a good Christian. And without it, you're not even one at all. You're not going to heaven. You're not going to enter in unless you cannot be rescued by God. What is your measure? I'm not quite ready for that yet. This is their measure. What was their measure? What did they add here? Okay, Pastor, you're just confusing the matter, you're confusing the matter. We know that a person is a Christian because they trust Christ. And that there are some who are good at it and some who aren't. Good at being a Christian, that is. Is that the case? Listen, I'm going to tell you something. Is there some difference between what makes a person a Christian and what makes him or her a good one? That's not a rhetorical question. Is there a difference between what makes a person a Christian and what makes him or her a good one? No. We got a no over here, one vote. No over here, no over there, no over there. Okay? And some of us are still uncommitted onto this. Pastor, what are you doing to us? I'm taking you into a controversy. I'm taking you into a dissension. I'm taking you into a dispute. And I'm taking you in it in regards to eyes that we look at it with, to get to the eyes that God sees it with. Let me say this. There is nothing different. There is nothing different between what makes a person a Christian and what makes him a good Christian, but there is a difference. There is nothing different between what makes you a Christian and what makes you a good Christian, but there is a difference. What? Let's look at it. We're going to look at it this way. We're going to talk about there is an issue here of no small dissension. Number two, we're going to look at it that this matter did require much debate. And number three, we're going to look at it that this has a settled clarity to it. And my aim is for your clarity, for your benefit, for your joy, for your participation. It's what I'm after. It's where I'm going. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk here first about that this is an issue of no small dissension. Look at verse 2. And after Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and debate with them. This matter that they brought up of what makes you a good one, what makes you one at all, took them into no small dissension. You know what this was? This was an eye-to-eye, a toe-to-toe, a intent focus that was going in two opposite directions. It was like two different ways, opposite of each other. A tractor pulling contest when both of them had their throttles wide open, and they're going different directions. That's hard. That's hard on the ground. That's hard on the machine. That's hard on your ears. It's hard on your nostrils when those are doing that. And it is tractor pulling season, you know. My dad loved it. That's what dissension means. Full throttle, going in opposite directions, intense. And it was not small. It was not small. It was not small. And they were hooked into it. What is the issue here? What's the issue? Pardon me? Circumcision, part of it. Good. What else? Obeying the law. Okay. Here, let me put up what the word is that summarizes this. The word is legalism. What does that mean? That there is something you must do in order to be able to go to heaven. That unless you are circumcised look at verse 1, unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved. And who are they saying that to? Look at verse 1. They came and they told the brothers. Who were the brothers? They're believers, assembled in Antioch. And they say to them, unless you are circumcised, you cannot go to heaven. You're not in. You're not going. That's legalism. that there is some law that you must do, some act, some ritual, something that you must do or you're not going. In verse 5, look at how this thing heated up. That Paul and Barnabas do a thing that the church has in mind here. But some believers, verse 5, who belonged to the party of the Pharisees, rose up and said, it is necessary to circumcise them and to order them to keep the law of Moses. Now that is legalism proper. You have to do this. It's not enough to believe in Jesus like you. You must do this. Now, this is a particular kind of legalism that's called Judaizing. It's trying to make these people go under Judaism, Jewish faith, too. I mean, that's where I have been my whole life. And I came to Christ, they were saying, because I was a Jew. And you guys think you're going to get in without this stuff too? No way. It's called Judaizing. A form of legalism properly defined that you must do. But I want you to know there's other forms of legalism. For example, there's a form that is called baptismal legalism. It also has the name baptismal regeneration, which means this. What does it mean? That unless you're baptized, what? You're not saved. Does that have a ring to it somewhere? Wow. You have to be saved. There's another one, which I call translational legalism. Here is the one that I encountered just after I was saved. At Kent State University, I went with a group of other Christians to a guy's house who was a dentist, who was participating with the university fellowship there that I was involved in. And he was teaching and presenting some good things. And afterwards, he was talking to him, and I was holding my Bible there, talking to him. And he said, in the course of the conversation, unless somebody uses a King James Bible to lead you to Christ, you're not saved. And you see, somebody didn't even use a Bible. They just quoted some Bible verses out of a little booklet. That was the New American Standard translation. And that's when I got saved. And I'm standing there looking at him. And then he goes further. And he says, and it has to be with a black cover and gold edges. Or I'm not saved. And I began to think, I don't think he's right. It's legalism. Translational legalism. There's another one. Denominational legalism. Unless you're in this church, you're not saved. This denomination, you can't go to heaven. I was raised in one like that. I remember as a little kid sitting in my mom and dad's car thinking how sad it is that because all those people aren't what we are, they're not going to heaven. It's legalism, properly defined. That's legalism. Unless you stop, unless you start, unless you do, you're not going to heaven. It must be. This must be. Now, Jesus said there are some things that must be. Do you remember what he said there must be in order to enter the kingdom of God? Do you remember what he said it must be in order to see and enter the kingdom of God? He said you must be born again, born of the Spirit of God, born from above. That is the necessity. That in this life of yours, there is generated the Spirit of God who now comes out of you, and you are born of that Spirit. That's what he said is a necessity. And I want you to know that that is an experience, and it's not a to-do. It is something you experience. Now, your birth was a to-do for your mom, but it was something you experienced. Believe me, she experienced it too. But she had to do it. And you just went along for the ride. This was an experience. It's not a to-do on your part. It's something you go through by God, because it's born of his Spirit. Now, I want you to know that that is the bottom line. If a person does not have this Spirit, they are not of Christ. No matter what they say, if they don't have that Spirit, they do not belong to him. And if you would like to question that, read for yourself Romans chapter 8, which explains it so straight up. It's just like right there. If anyone have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. And that's the bottom line. That's it. That's the must be. And how, if it's nothing we do, how are we born again? Well, I'm going to put up here what is said in the Gospel of John, and this born again into who it's to. I'm going to put it up here. There we go. John. But as many as received him, he's talking about Christ, as many as took Christ to themselves. And he explains what that means right here. As many as received them, even to them that believe on his name. These he gave the right, the power, the authority to become children of God. And these are those who are born, not of the blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but they are born of what? They are born of God. That is it. It is taking Jesus to yourself. That is trusting him. Listen to me. That is trusting him. And listen to me. There is no difference for anyone on this. It's no different for anyone. It's no different. Say this with me. It is no different for anyone. Everybody has to be born of this Spirit, and it has to be this way, and it is of God, and it is taking Jesus. And that's it. It is no different. There is no difference here. It's to those who believe, and my little ND means no difference. No difference. So, having said that, let's do this. What did they do because of the dissension? Remember what the dissension was. You must do this or you're not going to heaven. Paul says, no way, buddy, I'm not letting this stand. And he slams it in gear and goes in the other direction, full throttle. Huh. What did they do? The church is standing there and what do they do? What does the church do? Okay, let's put this story together here. I kind of introduced it. Let's put this story together, and if you don't put it together, I'll pull it together and piece it. What happens here? This is a Jerusalem council. What happens? What does the church do? Church at Antioch, Syria, what do? Good. They say, we need to send Paul and Barney to Jerusalem and to see this matter. As a matter of fact, this is specifically what they say. They specifically say, go to Jerusalem to the apostles and the elders. Okay, verse 2. Go up to Jerusalem, and the apostles and the elders, about this question. And they sent them. They sent them up there. Now, next thing. When they got up there, Apostle Paul and Barnabas, they traveled through Phoenicia, which is where Sidon and Tyre were, and they talked to the believers there, the Gentiles, and they were, wow, this is a good time, fellowship. They went down to Samaria, and you know how it happened there, that there were some Samaritans who became to the Lord too, and phew, wow, they had a good problem. They maybe saw the woman at the well. I don't know, may have, that's where she was at. May have seen her. You know how she got in, right? Yeah, just by the authority of that traveling, unemployed Jesus character. That was all. And when they got to Jerusalem, man, they got the church together and they were sitting there and they were telling what God was doing with the Gentiles and what they had seen. And whoa, there was a good time. And then that is when, verse 6, verse 5, some of the believers who belonged to the party of the Pharisees rose up and said, you've got to go back to them and you've got to tell, hey, you've got to be circumcised and you've got to keep the law of Moses. And I want you to know this is what came up. Much debate. This is the church of Jerusalem. This is where the apostles and the elders are. Look what the elders did. Verse 6. And the apostles and the elders were gathered together to consider this matter. They convened together, and they're going to talk about this thing. What shall we add now to unless you can't be saved? What shall we add? What shall we add? Okay, so this was the story. And this is how the debate went. They got together, and look at verse number 7. And after there had been much debate. Now, my wife likes debate, okay? She had to learn to not like it so much, okay? She was growing up, high school, she got awards for debating. She studied how to debate. She got ribbons and was recognized throughout her school as being a debater. Okay? And she can debate. My kids have learned to debate her back. Makes for some interesting conversations, especially when there is a degree of intensity on this. And my kids have grown in their debating because we used to debate. This was not a small debate. This was not an inconsequential debate. This was a debate that's going to touch every corner of the earth, per Jesus' words, and an issue that determines destiny, per Jesus' words. Much debate. Apostles and the elders gathered to consider it. What was the debate about? What are they debating? Whether Christians should wear pants or not? Are shorts acceptable? Should hair be over the ears? Does the Bible have to be black with gold edges? King James. And say, what year was this? And it came about in 1611. Interesting. What was the debate about? Pardon me? Hear the gospel. Okay. Part of it. Gospel is definitely a part of this debate. Huge part. All the law. Okay. What's the debate about? Circumcision. Okay. I think we need some clarity in this. What the debate was about is what they said in verse 5. It is necessary. It is a must. It is something that has to be done to circumcise them and to order them to keep the law of Moses. We shall add this. We shall add the law of Moses. I mean, it's a good thing, right? Yeah. So let's add it. I mean, come on. They can hear the law, and they can get better and better by knowing it and doing it, and they'll get so much better that they will be good Christians. Add the law. That's what we do. And not only add the law like, oh, this would be nice to add on. You command them. You must be keeping the law. Just like that. Add it. It's going to go a long ways. I guarantee it. Look what it's done for us. Two tractors, opposite direction, full throttle. It was no small debate. The apostles gathered to consider. And that's what they debated about. And the law's necessity. Excuse me, let me bring that back. The law's necessity. Is the law necessary? The law's necessity to be added to their life. What law are we talking about? We're talking about God's law. We're not talking about this is a 15-mile-per-hour zone. We're talking about God's law. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for God will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. That means every time someone says, oh, God's going to be holding him to it. Oh! Add that to them. Is that a good thing? It's a good thing, right? A good thing. Add that. Is there benefit in the law? There's benefit. You say there's benefit, okay? What's the benefit of the law? Okay, good. I'm going to do something here. We're going to turn to Romans 3. We're going to do this twice this morning. Book of Acts, book of Romans, right after Acts. Romans chapter 3, and we're just going to look at just a little section. And this is like just a little part of what the Bible says, but it says it so concisely here. Romans 3, verse 21. Now the righteousness of God has been manifest apart from the law and the prophets, although, he says, although the law and the prophets bear witness to it. That's verse 21. What's he talking about? He's talking about the right things that God thinks is right. The right things that God thinks is right, because this is how he is. God's law comes from his character. His statement of what is right is because of the way that he is. What is right? What is normal? Human beings have a tremendously difficult time with that. But God doesn't. Because God only has to look at what he, in his perfection, sees is right and does, because this is the way I am. So, he's telling us that the law of God and the prophets calling people to God's law show the righteousness of God. That's one thing it does. It shows what God thinks is right. It shows the character of God. God thinks it's not right to take his name in vain. Why? Is he proud? Is he a vain person? Is that why he says, don't diss my name? No. because it's to our extreme disadvantage to belittle in our own eyes and the eyes of people what God is like, what his name stands for. And when everything bad happens, we're always bringing it up, or something that's to no avail, it's just like, OMG. I want you to know that you are dissing his name. And it is. It's dissing him. And the law says don't do it. And the law says a whole bunch of things about relationships. Like it says, don't lie about the person next to you. Don't take what belongs to him and not to you. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff here, right? And it shows where God is at. Number 2, slide up to verse 20 here. Verse 20. For by the works of the law, no human being will be justified in his sight, since through the law comes, which is what was said back there in that corner, the knowledge of sin. We know what sin is by what the law tells us God thinks is right and the way he is concerning what is right. And when we don't do that, when we miss that target, that's sin. And is that important for people? Oh, man. Because we don't know what's normal. Sometimes we think all kinds of is normal. And look at the law. You shall not commit adultery. Why? It's normal. Did you hear me? It's normal. Because God said it's wrong. I remember my brother, when I was talking to him about the Lord, and I remember him going to his religious leader at the time, who definitely wasn't me, and he said to him, I don't even know what sin is anymore. So he said, honestly, because I was talking to him about sin, and that's what he was saying. He didn't know. And you know what this guy said? This guy gave him tremendous insight. He said to him, yes, a lot of people have that problem. Wow. It's benefit because we know sin by it. And look up to verse 19. Now we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be stopped and the whole world may become accountable, guilty before God. This is the benefit of the law, that it shows you that you aren't ever going to be able to get there on your own. You are guilty, 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 guilty. Say this with me. You are guilty. Say this with me. I am guilty. Yeah. That's the benefit. It shows me that I am guilty. Benefit. So, add the law. Add the law. There's benefit here. Let me ask you, how good is the law? I mean, God's law, of all the laws that are around, how good is God's law? I mean, it's perfect. Okay, so we're debating whether we're going to add some perfect law to the Christian life, something to come up with that's going to make it better. It's going to make a good Christian. That's what they're debating. Let's add this. It's a good thing. It's got to be good for us. Right? Sounds reasonable. Much debate. Much debate. Okay, so that was the apostles and the elders as they considered this matter. Much debate. And then Peter stands up. And Peter makes a few points here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to list the points here. There's the points. Oops. Yeah, that's the points. Get the point? There's the points. Okay, here's the points. He says, verse 7, brothers, last part, you know that God made a choice by my mouth to take the word of the gospel to the Gentiles so that they could believe it. Okay, Peter's point. God made a choice to use the word of the gospel. What's the gospel? It's the good news about what? Yeah, not the good news that we're getting running water. That's good news, especially if you go without it. I know somebody who's been out of it for a while in Guatemala. I just heard about him in a long time. It's good news, but that's not the good news. The good news is that Jesus came and died for your sin, and when he died, he paid the totality of the penalty for your sin. All of it. He paid it all. So that there's no charge of sin against me. And then God, in his power, imputed, he gave to you the right standing that Jesus had as a gift. It's the gift of righteousness through faith in Jesus Christ. That is the gospel. And Peter says God chose to bring them the gospel and for them to believe it. You see that? Not different. No difference for anyone. Number 2, the Holy Spirit was given to them and they saw it. Not different for anyone who believes the gospel. Number 3, they cleanse their hearts by keeping the law. He cleansed their hearts by trusting this gospel. God cleansed their hearts by trusting the gospel. Not different. Number 5, now the yoke of the law, he says. Look with me, verse 10. He says the verse of, now, therefore, why are you putting God to the test by placing a yoke on the neck of the disciples that neither our fathers nor we have been able to bear? What are you doing? You're clamping them down. You're holding them down with something you haven't been able to pull in this tractor pulling contest. The law. The law. It's beneficial, but you're clamping it down and they haven't been able to. If you can't add a perfect law, what can you add to a person's life to make them good as a Christian? If you can't add the perfect law to a believer who has Christ to make them a good Christian, what can you add? What can you add? I mean, can you come up with something? Maybe you need to do more push-ups in the morning. Maybe you need to get up earlier. Maybe you need to read the Bible later. Maybe you need to set a goal to talk to more people per day. Maybe you need to... All of that is like, compared to the law of God, that's like, it's like, come on! You know what I mean? So what can we add? You can't add it. And as a matter of fact, if you do add anything, it becomes a yoke and a weight and a burden that hasn't been intended. So what are you saying here, Pastor? You say there is no law? Oh, no. There's a law. It's beneficial. But I don't have a thing to do to keep it that makes me any better off with God. Not a thing. Not a thing. Not a thing. Okay? He adds by saying, God saved them through grace. God's favor, God's blessing, God's benefits, contrary to what they did. not different. And by the way, if you do add the law, people become hypocrites. Because they're going to show you, see how good I am? I keep in step. I'm on the measure. And it's not the case. Okay, so having said that, let's finish this by seeing what Barnabas did and Paul. They told stories about what God did among the Gentiles. That's what they did, verse 12. Now let's see what the elder James decided. Okay, so verse 13. After they finished speaking, that is, all the apostles, Peter, the debate amongst the apostles, and then Peter stood up, and then Paul and Barnabas. James replied, brothers. Now, who is James? I mean, who is he anyway? Why should we listen to you? Who is he? He's a brother of Jesus. So is that it? I got to be brother of Jesus? Well, let me tell you, it helps to be a brother of Jesus. Spiritual, physical, it's good. He stands up as the leading elder, the pastor at Jerusalem. And he says, listen, Simon has told us what God did. We heard it. That he at first, and the Bible agrees with this, and it quotes Amos, verses 16 and 17. And then verse 19, he comes to his judgment. He says, therefore, my judgment is that we should not trouble those Gentiles who turn to God. You know what the word trouble means? Listen, this is what the word trouble means. It means to take something, and would you stand up here, Rachel? Stand up here, Rachel. And I want you to start to go from over there to over here, okay? And as you go... That's what the word trouble means. It's annoying, is what the word trouble means. That's what the word trouble means. It means to annoy someone greatly by keep throwing something in their path. Keep throwing something in there so that they're going to stumble and have to go around it. And that's what they're saying. That's what James is saying. The law, the perfect law of God added to Christ does. Did you hear that? That's what James is saying. It's annoying. It's throwing stuff in the way, annoying. You know who James is? Who is James? He was the Lord's brother. He was the senior pastor of the first church in Jerusalem. That's what James said. That's what it does. I thought it was good. It is good if one uses it well. How is to use it well? To understand what the character of God's like. Number two, help somebody see sin. Number three, to get him to the point of guilt. Yeah, gratitude for God, sure, because of a rescue. It becomes the basis of that. So, that's James' judgment. And the church, they just kind of all sat there and looked at him. This is my judgment. Do not trouble them. And then he says this. Abstain. What? I thought you said no law. What is this? It's abstention. I'm abstaining. That sounds like a law to me. Grace. Grace. What? Grace. 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 What do you mean grace? Grace has law in it? Absolutely not. But grace teaches. Doesn't have a law. But grace teaches. What does it teach? I'm going to have you turn to Titus 2, okay? I know I usually don't have you turn. This is of huge significance. We need to turn. Titus chapter 2. Go back to the T books of the New Testament. Thessalonians, Timothy, Titus, The T books, the last of the T books. It's good to have T-bone steak. That's what this is. T-bone steak. Titus chapter 2. I want you to see what grace does. Verse 11. For the grace of God that brings salvation. God's unearned, undeserved blessing and favor and benefit poured into our life when we've done everything to deserve his wrath. Grace brings salvation. It brings rescue. That's what he says. That's what Paul says. For the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared for all people. Teaching us. Grace teaches us. What does it teach us? It teaches us to say no. It teaches us to abstain. To say no. Grace teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions. Not the law. It's grace. It's God's blessing. It's his benefit. It's his favor pulled out on us. And we, in gratitude, like Christina said, we say, no. 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 To ungodliness and worldly desires. Then they all go away. They just doop, 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 and never bother you again. Because you say no. Every time they come back, you say, well, maybe. And then we have to say no. Again, because the law requires it? Absolutely not. Because grace teaches us, hey, you know, Lord, you've done this for me. I want to go with you. Oh, sometimes I don't want to go with you. I want to. I don't want to. I do. I don't. I do. And that's the war of the flesh and the spirit. You know what I'm talking about. Teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly pleasures, to live a controlled, upright, God's way, and oriented to God's life in the present age, looking for Christ to come again, who redeemed us so that we're enthusiastic about the good things. That's what grace teaches. And the apostle and the elders, when they heard James say abstain, it was grace that teaches. Not a thing is gained. Now listen, ND. It's not different for anyone. Not different for Jew, for Gentile, for you, or for the believer next door to you, beside you. Not different. This did require much debate. And this came to a settled clarity. Look at what they say. Back in James 15, or Acts 15, verse 22. And it seemed good to the apostles, the elders, and the whole church. It seemed good. Seemed good what? Well, that they do a couple things here. It seemed good to them all. It seemed beneficial to send messengers. So they got Judas, who was he was dead, that Judas. There's another Judas. And they got Silas, and they sent him to verify what was being said, and they sent a letter. And the content of the letter is given in verses 23 through 29. We're not going to go through it in detail. We could go through it in detail. I'd love to go through it in detail. Let's not go through it in detail. Verse 25. It seemed good, verse 25. It seemed good to us, having come to one accord. Do you see that? It seemed good to us because we came to a settled conclusion. We came to an absolute clarity, a certainty, a settledness. Because these folks were unsettled. Look what they say at the beginning of this letter. Slide up with me to verse 22, to verse 23. The following letter. Brothers, both the apostles and the elders, to the brothers who are Gentiles in Antioch and Syria and Cilicia, and greetings. Since we have heard that some persons have gone out from us here in Jerusalem and troubled you, upsetting you greatly with unsettling words, with words that have just turned your world upside down as if somebody has invaded it and taken over control. That's what the word unsettled means. Somebody invaded your world, unsettling your mind. Although we gave him no instruction, it seemed good to us to let you know that we have come to one accord. We are settled, we are certain, we are sure, we are harmonized on this. What? This is what we're harmonized about. We therefore send you, verse 27, Silas, Judas, for it seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us to lay no greater burden on you than these things to abstain. No wait, no wait, no wait. Just let grace have you say no. And these are things that would offend the other Jews. And these are things that are just outright. No sexual immorality. I mean, the pagans had religion that was sexual immorality. So he thought we ought to include that. And so that's what the letter said. In the congregation at Antioch, when they got this, what did they say? Oh man, we got to abstain. Absolutely not. They were overjoyed. The Bible says that there was great gladness in them and they were encouraged. And Silas there and Judas actually strengthened them more, verse 32. And the brothers were celebrating that there's nothing added. Okay. No different, but there is a difference. What's the difference? It was in that grace passage. And it said that we should trust grace. We should trust it more than our thinking, than our feelings, than our wants. You see, when we come to those incidents where sin is present, we have to decide, I know what this is like, I know what I get to do, I know how this thrills me, I know what this, my thinking, my thoughts, my feelings, or my trust in God that says, this would be hard. This is hard. It's worse. So I'm going to let grace teach me to say no. And we have to decide. And that's where you and I are. Saying no. As a law? No. For the first time in your life, you can do something absolutely free. Absolutely free. Because what's free is you don't have to do a blasted thing. Because God is already pleased. But free from yourself, you can do it because I appreciate you. I love you. And I want you to know that is what God has been after all along. Not machines, not automats, not commanded, not computer programmed in commands, but people who respond to a loving God. So, it's settled. The issue is it settled in your heart that you cease striving, that you give it up, that you enjoy this thing free, knowing nothing interferes with him. Nothing can take it away. And you just say, yes, because of appreciation. Well, what if I don't? Well, you can't say you won't. That's a law. If you don't, the hound of heaven loves you, and the hound of heaven will do what he loves to do. Take care of his kids. It's up to you. Is it settled? Father, it needs to be settled. We need to, by your grace, trust only in Jesus. Knowing that grace saves us, teaches us grace. Oh Lord, Christ alone I stand. Amen.